someone drew a hummingbird the size of a football field into the desert floor. Then they walked away. And no one saw the whole thing for 1,500 years. This is the story of the Nazca Lines. They are not small. They are not subtle. Stretched across 90 kilometers of arid Peruvian plateau, etched into the earth with a precision that would challenge modern engineers, are hundreds of enormous figures. A spider, a condor, a monkey with a spiraling tail. Lines that run so straight across broken terrain that surveyors have measured them against lasers and come up short on explanations. And here is the thing that should keep you up at night. The civilization that made them had no aircraft, no satellites, no way, none, to see what they had built from the ground. You can walk the lines and see almost nothing. You have to be hundreds of feet in the air before the image resolves, before a hummingbird becomes a hummingbird. So who were these drawings for? The Nazca people flourished here between roughly 100 BC and 800 AD. They were not primitive. They built underground aqueducts called puquios that still carry water today. They wove some of the finest textiles in the ancient world. They understood astronomy, geometry, hydrology. They were a civilization of genuine sophistication, thriving in one of the driest places on Earth. The Atacama-adjacent coastal desert of southern Peru receives almost no rain, almost no wind. That peculiar stillness is part of why the lines survived. The climate preserved them, but it also raises a question no one has answered satisfactorily. Why here? Why this desert? Why this scale? And there is a detail most people don't know, a detail that changes everything. The lines were not discovered from the air by accident. They were hiding in plain sight for centuries. Local people knew they were there. Spanish colonizers built a road straight through them without noticing. It was not until 1927 when a Peruvian archaeologist named Toribio Mejia Jespi was hiking through the foothills and noticed the strange, shallow trenches that academic attention began to turn toward the plateau. And even then, the full scope of what was there didn't become clear until the 1930s, when commercial pilots flying routes over Peru started radioing back with confused and increasingly astonished reports. There is a giant dog down there. There is a whale. There is something that looks like an astronaut. That last one became famous for the wrong reasons. But we'll get to that. The creation of the lines is understood at a basic level. The surface of the Nazca Plateau is covered in reddish-brown iron oxide-coated pebbles. Beneath them, the earth is a pale, yellowish gray. The Nazca removed the surface stones and piled them at the edges, exposing the lighter ground beneath. Simple in principle, staggering in execution. Some lines extend for kilometers without deviation. Some figures are drawn in a single continuous line that never crosses itself. The largest figures span nearly 300 meters. A single figure. 300 meters of proportional, accurate, recognizable animal form, executed without being able to see it. That is the part that doesn't resolve cleanly, no matter how long you stare at it. How? Researchers have demonstrated that the Nazca could have used grids and simple tools to scale up smaller drawings. They have recreated segments of the lines with teams of workers using stakes and rope. It is technically possible. The logistics do not require advanced technology in the strictly mechanical sense. But that answer, while technically sound, only pushes the question back one step. Because the real question was never how. It was why. Here is where it gets stranger. When German mathematician Maria Rietzsche dedicated 50 years of her life to studying the Nazca Lines, mapping them by hand from ladders and small aircraft, she developed a theory that the lines functioned as an astronomical calendar. that the figures and lines aligned with solstices, star clusters, celestial events that mattered to an agricultural society in a desert where water was life and sky was everything. She died in Lima in 1998, still convinced she had found the answer. And she was, by most accounts, brilliant, obsessively rigorous, the kind of researcher who checks her own work obsessively. But subsequent computer modeling of the alignments produced a difficult result. The astronomical correlations she found were no better than chance. The lines point to things in the sky, but so would almost any large collection of random lines drawn across 90 kilometers of open ground. The universe is large. Lines will intersect with something. If unsolved cases like this stay with you long after the video ends, subscribe. We uncover a new one every week. So Reich's 50 years raised more questions than answers, and the researchers who followed her found themselves facing the same wall from different directions. Anthropologist Johann Reinhard proposed that the lines were connected to water and mountain worship. The Nazca lived in a desert. Water was sacred. Survival. Mountains were where the rain came from. He argued the figures and lines were designed to propitiate the mountain gods, to make offerings, to walk ritual paths as acts of devotion and supplication. Sacred geography rather than astronomy. There is evidence for this in the ceramic and textile record of Nazca culture. Their iconography is saturated with water symbols, agricultural imagery, figures that recur in both the pottery and the geoglyphs. This theory has serious academic support, but it doesn't explain the scale. You don't need a figure 300 meters long for a ritual procession. You don't need it to be visible from a height no living person could reach, unless the audience was not human. If you have a theory forming already, keep it in mind. I'll ask you about it at the end. And now, we reach the part of this story that is genuinely uncomfortable. Because for the Nazca people themselves, there is a human cost buried in the mystery that rarely makes the documentaries. The Nazca civilization did not disappear quietly into history. Around 600 AD, their culture underwent severe disruption. Archaeological evidence points to prolonged drought, environmental degradation, possibly a catastrophic El Niño event that destroyed the Huarango forests they depended on for a stable ecosystem. The civilization that built the most extraordinary artistic achievement of the pre-Columbian world watched their water sources fail, their crops fail, their world contract. Bioarchaeological analysis of skeletal remains from the period shows signs of violence, malnutrition, social collapse. These were not abstract ancient people. These were parents, children, communities that had spent generations creating something extraordinary, and then spent their final years watching everything fall apart. The lines outlasted them by 15 centuries. Whatever they meant, whatever they were for, they were not enough to save the people who made them. That is the weight that sits beneath this mystery. Not just the unanswered question of purpose, but the unanswered question of whether purpose mattered in the end. Now let's talk about the three theories that serious researchers still argue over. The first is the ritual pathway theory. The lines were walked. The act of walking them was the ritual itself, a kind of labyrinthine devotion, a physical prayer traced across the body of the earth. Archaeological evidence shows no shrines, no temples at the endpoints of most lines. They don't lead anywhere in a conventional sense. But perhaps arriving was not the point. Perhaps the walking was. Some researchers point to the fact that many figures are drawn as continuous paths and that the Nazca may have processed along them during ceremonies connected to the agricultural cycle. It is deeply compelling. It treats the Nazca as exactly what they were, a complex spiritual culture solving the ancient problem of how to speak to forces larger than themselves. But it still doesn't answer why the image only resolves from the air. The second theory is water mapping. Anthropologist David Johnson spent years analyzing the relationship between the lines and the underground water table. His data suggested the lines functioned as maps and markers for the Puyo-Aqueduct system, pointing towards subsurface water sources in a landscape where finding water meant survival. Some correlations are striking. Others, researchers have been unable to replicate. The debate is ongoing, unresolved, and genuinely fascinating. The third theory is the one you already know, and it is the least supported. But it lodged itself in global consciousness in 1968, when Erich von Däniken published Chariots of the Gods and proposed that the lines were landing strips for extraterrestrial aircraft. The figure sometimes called the astronaut. The scale visible only from the air. Von Däniken's answer was simple. They were made for visitors from space. Archaeologists and anthropologists reject this almost universally, and not without reason. It erases the extraordinary human achievement behind the lines. It says, essentially, that ancient people could not have done this without help. That their intelligence, their ingenuity, their spiritual imagination were insufficient. The evidence does not support it. And yet, the theory persists, because the underlying question that spawned it has never been cleanly answered by any other framework. Why are they only visible from the air? No one has given a final answer. No one. The plateau holds its silence. The hummingbird holds its shape. And the people who made it are gone, leaving behind the largest question mark ever drawn on the face of the earth. So what do you think? Was this ritual? Navigation? An offering to gods who lived in the sky? Tell me your theory in the comments. I want to know what you see when you look at this from the air and try to make sense of it. Every case we cover on this channel is real and unsolved, and still waiting for someone to notice the detail everyone else missed. Subscribe and be part of the search. Next week, we cross into Eastern Europe, where a group of experienced hikers died on a mountain in circumstances that have defied explanation for 60 years. Their tent was cut open from the inside. They fled into the frozen dark in their socks. And whatever they were running from was never identified. Subscribe so you don't miss it.